Hi, everybody. Welcome to 5 and 15, a webinar series from CEO where we promise to bring you 5 useful, interesting, maybe even amusing ideas, thought, tips you can use, all in the span of a 15-minute webinar because we know you are busy. I'm Mark Gale, CEO at CEO. We are a strategic marketing and communications agency, build and protect brands. End of commercial. Let's get to what our mantra is for these: be useful. We've had economists, ranchers, grocery store chain owners with us, researchers. Today, really excited to have somebody from the restaurant field, Eric Silverstein, Peach Tortilla in Austin, Texas. Now, you may or may not know that Austin is a huge food city. A couple of years ago, it was the highest per capita spend in restaurants, believe it or not, in the US. So restaurants a big deal, but it's a very competitive market. Over 10 years, however, Eric, our guest, has managed to go from food truck to much, much more than that. So Eric, why don't you give us a little introduction? Peach Tortilla, tell us a little bit about it, but stay pre-COVID. How's that? A little bit pre-COVID, and then we're going to get into COVID and the impacts on you and restaurants and what to do about it.
Well, I'll give you the quick rundown. So Peach Tortilla started as a food truck 10 years ago. A food truck I didn't even own. I leased the food truck, and we've been able to grow that business relatively organically over the past 10 years into multiple food trucks, 2 full-service brick and mortar locations. One is called the Peach Tortilla, another is called Bar Peach. And then we also have a fast casual unit called the Peach Tortilla inside of Austin Bergstrom International Airport. And then I also run a venue space called Peach Social House that is also the kind of home base for my catering division as well.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, I've had the good fortune to eat at your restaurant, eat at the airport. And I was thinking our mutual acquaintance, Christine Bilkey Santana now, sent me to the food truck early on. And I'm wondering if on a Saturday night, you actually might have cooked my food there way back when. But so you've done a tremendous job as an entrepreneur, and, you know, congratulations, admiration for that. But then one day, within the span of a week, COVID came.
Sure.
So, you know, give us a little sense of what's that like. We in these 5 and 15 discussions, we like to hear from the inside of somebody who's working in an industry. You know, even though we cross the food chain, there's nothing like your point of view.
I mean, COVID really felt like you were kind of living in an oceanside town, and you felt like a giant tidal wave was about to engulf your house. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like running restaurants. You know, you could kind of feel it coming as the week went on in the middle of March, all the way leading up to the 16th of March when we officially kind of closed dining. You could feel business start to dip, and it's a pretty terrible feeling, honestly, because there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's a little bit helpless, and you realize at that point that it's going to be a very difficult road back. And at that time, we didn't know how difficult it was going to be, whether we were going to be facing a 3-month recovery, a 6-month recovery, a year-long recovery. I remember thinking a year is the worst case scenario. But I feel like we probably have arrived at maybe the worst case scenario or beyond the worst case scenario.
Okay.
And, we went from having an airport unit open, the 2 restaurants open, and a thriving catering company, to all we had open at the height of COVID was takeout from one of our restaurants. So we were generating probably about less than 10% of our normal revenue.
And how much of that was you were shut down by the city or the county versus consumers deciding to stay away?
Well, I mean, every restaurant and every operation is different, so they all require, or they all involve, I guess, different scenarios, I should say. And sorry, I lost you for a second. So for instance, at the airport, airport traffic dipped so furiously fast that we weren't going to be able to stay open.
Yeah.
There was no, we were going to lose money. At my location downtown, Bar Peach, we didn't have a history of doing very well in takeout. So we decided to just shut it down, even though we could do takeout, but we were mandated to shut our dining rooms. And then at our original location on Burnett Road, we were again mandated to shut our dining rooms, and we kept our doors open for takeout. But it's pretty much impossible not impossible, but very unlikely that a full service restaurant is going to match their normal weekly sales.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to do, especially with the same product mix.
Yeah. Now you guys aren't cranking out pizzas, so that's, I know, is a little bit, it's a little bit more difficult for you to make that transition. How much has your menu had to change for takeout, and how has that worked out for you, the challenge?
We've had to definitely limit our menu for takeout. We wanted to make it more efficient, cut down on any waste, cut down on the prep, because we weren't doing as much in sales. So we ran a pared down menu for takeout at our original location. And when we converted to doing dine-in service in June, very limited dine-in, it made it a little bit easier to run the hybrid service with a smaller menu. We're still running a slightly smaller menu now that we're firmly entrenched in a hybrid service at our original location. Our original location is doing about, it's about 50-50 dine-in versus takeout, and we're at about 40% capacity indoors in terms of the amount of seats. We just don't have that many seats inside. It might be more like 35%, honestly. And then we added a patio outside.
Yeah, so you're just limited by that. How much of that, I've been reading lately, I'm sure you're reading every day, multiple times a day, or seeing things. How much of this do you think is going to be a permanent change, in restaurants where, do you think consumer behavior will change, your model will change, or do you think that people will come back just given a little time? And, I believe personally there will be a vaccine, there will be better treatments, but it is going to take a while.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I don't know, obviously. My gut tells me that people will want to go back to restaurants, and they will want to go back to full service restaurants because it's an experience that you can't recreate at home. And you certainly can't recreate on doing takeout. But I do think that the economics of restaurants are probably forever changed in some way. Largely because restaurants, really try to pack tables in, because every square foot counts in a restaurant. Your margins are thin, an extra 2 seats can make a big difference. So I don't think we'll be packing people in quite like before. Otherwise, I think people will be hesitant. So you're losing some of that square footage. And so I think when it comes time for people to renegotiate leases or go back to the drawing board, I think things are going to change. And I think that the demand for certain types of spaces are going to change. I still think there's going to be heavy demand for delivery. I think we live in a convenience-driven world, in a convenience-driven country, where we expect fast service, fast food, and we expect the convenience of all of that. But I don't think the current delivery models are sustainable. I don't think they're that profitable, honestly, for anyone, really.
No, I've heard that before, read that as well. So now let's talk. You're obviously an entrepreneur. That's why you've been able to go from that food truck. And we don't have time to get into it, but I love the story about how you started as an attorney and then you went into a food truck. There had to be friends and family going like, "What are you thinking of doing?" But it's a great story of American success. So. You were telling me about how you said, well, we're going to have to make some pivots. So, and you've already been doing that. So can you tell us a little bit, as much as you can, about a couple things you have going to pivot your business as a restaurant entrepreneur?
The biggest pivots, we've probably made about 6 or 7 pivots. The first pivot was running a family style curbside menu at the restaurant. initially, so grouping meals together, making them affordable in the $30 to $40 range to feed 2 to 3 to 4 people. That was the first pivot. The
Okay.
second pivot was launching our food trucks and going to different neighborhoods and serving people through contactless service, which we're still doing 5 days a week. So that was the second pivot. The third pivot was, we got approached with an opportunity to participate in a ghost kitchen in another state. And at first I was like, I don't, I quite honestly, I hit a low point during this thing where I didn't really feel like doing anything. I
Yeah.
felt pretty defeated that 10 years of work could be wiped out in 7 days. So, but ultimately, after thinking about it, we decided to participate in what amounts to be a vertically integrated ghost kitchen concept that is delivery focused in the state of Idaho, in Boise. It's low risk, but we're testing it out as a delivery centric ghost kitchen because, again, we need to have our eyes open on opportunities and realize that the market is changing, and we need to buy some insurance on that if the market does fully change. If the market's flipped over, upside down overnight, I want to at least have a piece of that pie too. And then we've done pop-ups with our catering team. Our catering business has been decimated. That's something that the media is not covering, is the events industry has been absolutely destroyed, more so than restaurants. If you're in the events industry, you are suffering tenfold over restaurants. So, we run a very large operation. We can't cater that many weddings. We don't cater corporate events anymore. And we have, an $11,000 a month lease right now. So, what do? You gotta be innovative in terms of bringing in revenue.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurial. That's great. Can you just explain briefly the the concept of ghost kitchens for some of our viewers who or our listeners who might not know what that is and how that might work?
Sure. I mean, ghost kitchens are basically kitchens that where the customer typically doesn't go inside, right? It's basically just a kitchen. There's no front of the house or anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And in this instance, it's really a delivery focused ghost kitchen where you have a facility with 15 individual pod-like kitchens with their own vent hoods. And when food is ready, it's placed on a conveyor belt. It goes into Expo, and then it goes into a vehicle and it's driven to you. And with a lot of these concepts, you can order from multiple concepts. So if you want piece tortilla paired with, some sliders and pizza to make the whole family happy, you can order from 3 different spots. The food is all produced at the same spot by 3 different operators, and then it's delivered to your doorstep. So we're really focused on delivery, but we're cutting some of the middlemen out of it. And in this instance, with our partners in Idaho, they employ the drivers, they own the delivery vehicles, so it's not anything like an Uber Eats or or a DoorDash or a Grubhub, which are essentially just technology companies.
Yeah. Interesting thing. I saw some news yesterday where one of those groups, and I think it might be the one that you told me about, just got some big venture funding this week for that concept. People, investors embracing the idea of that happening.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, I wish I could give you a high five because it's like you're seriously, you're inspirational in how you have decided. And I know you said, and I think anybody operating a business has gone through some moments during this thing where you've had, sleepless nights wondering like, wow, could this be it? And you've talked about how you picked up and did that. So what advice? And we're coming on to 14 minutes, so we can go a couple long, but just for your viewers, we're jamming a lot in 15 minutes. We're going to stay true to that, and then we'll finish up. Advice for entrepreneurs in the restaurant business, anywhere, running a business, running a brand. What's your advice for how to cope and how to make these pivots and figure out what to do?
Yeah, well, I'll say it's not easy, and I have my ups and downs just like any other normal human being during this time, and I've definitely had some really low points, and I still do. Um, I think at the end of the day, it really is adapt or die right now, and I think if you're looking through everything through the same lens that you did 6 months ago, that's probably a big mistake because the world isn't the same 6 months, after, deep into a pandemic. So I think it's important to recalibrate and reassess if your business is what it used to be and whether that opportunity still um, is still out there. And I think the key is to be honest with yourself. And sometimes in business, you have to let go. You have to let go of the past. And no matter how hard you worked or how much effort you put in or how much cost you sunk into a certain leg of your business, in my case, I've spent 10 years building this thing. I hate to say it, but I've got to let go of the past and certain things that I've sunk a lot of energy into to be able to have the freedom to focus on the future. And that will cause some short-term financial pain. And that's just the reality of it. I've always said to my kids and I've always said to my staff that life's not fair. And this is a perfect example of it. Life is not fair. And the sooner you realize that, the better, I think.
Yeah. Well, Eric, inspirational story. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be different, but I'm sure you are going to get through it. And honestly, that's some of the best advice that we've had on any of these so far, and very true to the heart. So, thanks for being so open with us. We're approaching 17 minutes.
All right.
So that's beyond 5 and 15. I want to thank you so much. I should have been in Austin 2 or 3 times already this year. I haven't been since January, but my first stop when I get there, peach tortilla on Burnet. So thank you for joining us today, and thanks for sharing your inside view of the restaurant, because all of us, even in the industry, we're a little bit on the outside looking in. So it's so valuable for somebody like you to give us the insider's view. So best wishes to you and everybody. Thanks for joining us today for 5 and 15. Watch for the next one. We'll keep them interesting. We'll keep them useful. And, best wishes for you navigating this global pandemic, which we will get through. I'm Mark Gale, signing off. Thanks all. Bye.